So this week, I read about the story of Pinchus. How, a second. Okay. And because Pinchus was zealous for Hashem's honor, the Torah says that Pinchus was awarded the gift of being a kohen. And Rashi comments on the opening verse of this Torah portion, Pinchus, the son of Elazar, son of Aaron HaKohen. And Rashi says that the other tribes were ridiculing their mavaza, they were disgracing Pinchas, and they said that he didn't act for God's honor. Rather, they said he's the grandson of Ben Putizeh. He's a grandson of somebody who fattened calves for idolatry, and because he fattened calves for idolatry, that's what motivated him because of how terrible he is, because he's such a wicked person. That's why he killed our prince, the prince of the tribe of Shimon, when Zimri ben Salu was acting immorally in front of all the Jewish people, and Pinchas took a spear and killed Zimri and Cosby, the princess of Moab. The reason he did this, everyone said, they were saying, was because he is a grandson of Yisrael, and Yisrael fattened calves for idolatry, and so he had something terrible in him, and this continued on to Pinchas. That's what Rashi says, and if Rashi concludes, so in order to dispel this notion that Pinchas didn't act wrongly, the Torah says that Pinchas is actually the grandson of Aaron HaKohen. So it sounds like, when you hear the Rashi, that the other Jewish people who were disgracing him felt he did something wrong, and the Torah defends him and says, no, he did something right. The problem with saying this is that, number one, what he did, if it was wrong, was murder. So instead of talking about his grandfather acting cruelly and fattening calves to serve them to idols, uh, or acting or serving idols in the first place, that which is seemingly a worse thing than just fattening calves to idolatry. The worst thing is, in fact, he's an idol worshiper. But worse than all these things is that he didn't act of murder. So forget about his grandfather. You don't have to go to his grandfather. Here's a guy who killed another Jew. Why are they saying, oh, look at what his grandfather did, and his grandfather fattened calves to idolatry? Say, if you want to insult him, or if you don't even feel it's an insult, you feel that this guy is wrong, he did something bad, something terrible, he killed somebody, say this guy's a murderer. So why did the other Jews who were insulting Pinchas, why were they talking about his grandfather? Why not just say he's a murderer? That's what they felt. So it does say in the Torah, in the end of Parshas Balak, that everyone was crying. Why was everyone crying? Because everyone forgot the halacha. No one knew the halacha. What was the halacha? The halacha is that if someone wants to be zealous for God's honor and kill this person who is acting immorally in front of all the Jewish people, he has permission to do so. That's the halacha. So Moshe Rabbeinu forgot the halacha, all the Jewish people forgot the halacha, and so that's why everyone was crying, because no one knew the halacha. So everyone was upset. Here's Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu stood against all the Jewish people, and they were serving the golden calf. And here we are in a situation of total quandary, of we don't know what's going on, and Moshe Rabbeinu was silent. So that's why everyone is crying. So Pinchas remembers the halacha. He goes to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he tells Moshe Rabbeinu, isn't the halacha that if someone does this, that someone who wants to be zealous for God's honor may kill them? And Moshe Rabbeinu says, yes, that is the halacha, and Pinchas kills Zimri. So if they all heard that this is the halacha, that this person can and should be killed, and on contrary, someone is zealous for God's honor, someone is especially pious, does this, so then they're not calling him a murderer. They know this guy did the right thing. And if they did not know the halacha, and they didn't discover the news that Pinchas told Moshe Rabbeinu, this is the halacha, Moshe Rabbeinu agreed, if they didn't hear that, so then why talk about his grandfather being someone who fed calves to idolatry? Say this guy is a murderer. Why are you talking about his grandfather? The answer is like this. They knew the halach. Those who were ridiculing Pinchas knew the halach. They knew that someone can and should be zealous for God's honor and do what Pinchas did. Take the spear and do exactly what he did. They were totally on board with that. What they felt was, why was that what he did was despicable, not because of the action that he did, but because of what motivated him to do it. They had this sick feeling in their stomach that the reason why Pinchas is doing this, he chose this mitzvah of all mitzvahs and no one else chose this mitzvah. Why did he remember this halacha? No one else did. They felt this was because he has a cruel nature. And look in his family tree. Look at his genes. Look who his grandfather was. His grandfather was somebody who took animals and didn't just offer them as sacrifices to idolatry, but he took them and he fattened them. He stuffed them with food just for the purpose of slaughtering them later to be a greater sacrifice to idolatry. That shows a particular cruelty. So they felt this guy may have done the right thing, but he did it. Why didn't Moshe Rabbeinu remember the halacha? Why didn't I remember the halacha? Only he remembered the halacha. Oh, why was he the only guy who remembered the halacha? Because he has in him something untoward. And that's why he's remembering this halacha. That's what they felt. So what did God respond? God said, Pinchas, the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. Aaron is someone who loves peace and pursues peace, as we learn in Pirkei Avos. Aaron expresses his persona is about about love and kindness. So the reason Pinchas did this and no one else did wasn't because he was the cruelest Jew around, and therefore he picked this mitzvah that no one else wanted to pick because he's the worst guy in town. Rather, the reason he did this was because of his goodness. You saw there's a plague. You saw Jews are being killed. You saw that everyone's suffering. So Pinchas, or God wanted Pinchas to have this merit of doing this mitzvah, and therefore he caused everybody else to forget the halacha, and in order that he should have the merit to act in God's honor and to do the right thing. So it wasn't that Pinchas was doing this because of his grandfather who fattened calves to idolatry. Rather, what was motivating him was his connection to Aaron HaKohen, because of his love and his kindness to protect the Jewish people. You have something to say?
Yeah, how can you say that everybody forgot the halacha when you just said that Bnei Shimon knew the halacha?
After Pinchas came forward and he asked Moshe, "Isn't this the halacha?" So Moshe Rabbeinu told them, "The one who reads the letter should fulfill it." So
the news spread so fast to Bnei Shimon that they knew.
Let's say it didn't. Let's say they didn't know. If they didn't know, so why are they talking about him being a descendant of someone who's cruel? Why don't they say this guy is a murderer? If they didn't discover what Pinchas said, they should call him a murderer. If they did discover what Pinchas said and how Moshe Rabbeinu agreed he was correct, then why don't they call him a tzaddik? And the answer is that they felt that this guy, he had the right thing to do, but what motivated him was not because of his righteousness, but it was his cruelty. They say about my great-grandfather, Rabbi Mayar, that when someone needed to be hugged or kissed, he was the first one to do it. They say about another chassid who wasn't as kind, that when someone needed to get a patch, someone needed to get hit over the head and insulted and put down, if that's what the hour called for, that's what the divine court in heaven wanted something to happen. So he was the guy who stood up and said, yeah, that's my mitzvah. So all the other Jews in the tribe of Shimon, they felt, Pinchas, you chose this mitzvah. Why did you choose this mitzvah? It's because of your cruelty. And so God said, no. God said the reason he chose this mitzvah wasn't because of his cruelty. It was the contrary. It was because of his goodness, because he couldn't stand the Jews being killed in this plague, and he stood up to defend it. That's why the Torah says Pinchas was the son of Elazar, the son of Aaron HaKohen. It was his goodness that motivated him, not his cruelty.
One other question. I don't know how you deduce that by fattening calves for idolatry, it seems to me, lahavdil, it's just like a hither mitzvah. Like they want to do what's right within their own pagan ritual. What makes that? Why is that cruel? It's cruel from our. I don't get it. It looks like they're trying to be closer to their concept of God.
when I had a divine soul when I was in fourth grade, and I learned about how they make veal. They take this calf and they put him in the closet. I don't know if this is true. This I heard in fourth grade.
That's true.
Stuff him. It's true, right?
Yeah.
And then after they stuff him up, and then they kill him so that we could enjoy this great tender steak. I was appalled. I was like, wow, I'm never gonna eat veal again. It never lasted about 10 minutes. But just like this
Yeah. Okay.
it's a cruel thing. You're fattening him up to kill it. Doesn't matter why you're killing it, for your own consumption, for the idol's consumption. But it's you're like, they also offer their children to idolatry. That's cruel. That's cruel. Like it comes from a very cruel place. Like you notice, like certain people, they choose certain mitzvahs and they don't choose other mitzvahs. There's some guys in the show that they're the ones who choose to be the Rambos and to get the guns and to protect the Jewish people, right? They're the ones who want to get guns. They're not usually the people, in my experience, the ones who are telling everyone else to be quiet during davening. They're not the ones who are quiet themselves during davening necessarily. They're the ones who are just like, we're going to protect the Jewish people. It's something in their
Maybe
nature.
if
Like we're
people
going to
would
do.
listen if they had guns. Maybe it'd be a quiet shul.
Say again.
If they did tell people to stop talking, would listen.
With the guns, yeah. So there are certain mitzvahs that you naturally choose. That this is a good thing. So why they said, listen, there's something subconscious. They're not saying that if he asked Moshe Rabbeinu, got the answer. They're not putting in the blogs of that this guy is a murderer. They know he's not a murderer. They're putting in the blogs, this guy is a terrible guy. He chose the mitzvah that no one wanted to do. No one wanted to do it. Moshe didn't want to do it. Aaron didn't want to do it. This guy's a terrible guy, and he picked this unpopular mitzvah that no Jew would ever do in their right mind. No Jew would ever choose to do this mitzvah. Only a terrible person to choose to do this mitzvah. It's a mitzvah, yeah, it's a mitzvah, but who chooses this mitzvah? Someone who's cruel. So, and so there's two things we get from this. The first thing we get from this is that when someone does something to help the Jewish people, and it seems the person has a motive, and you know from experience this person has done similar things because of their similar things that are not so noble, that come from the same kind of nature, and so you feel like, okay, so this guy did this mitzvah because he's this kind of person who subconsciously chooses these kinds of mitzvahs. So the Torah says, as long as the guy stopped the plague, something was accomplished. The Torah itself gives him the yichus, ascribes him to be a grandson of Aaron HaKohen. If he did something good, don't second guess them and say, oh, they did this for the wrong reason. Look at the fact of what they did and realize the Eibishter draws a line between who they are and Aaron HaKohen. It's something you don't have to second guess them. A good thing was done. That's one thing we get from the story. Second thing we get from the story is that main thing is to get the job done. You have to stand up and protest when something's happening. It's not the way it's supposed to be, and don't say, okay, no one else did this, and therefore that's not my mitzvah. Could be that the reason why no one else is doing this is because this is a mitzvah that's meant for you to do. That Hashem has ordained that your soul has a special source to do this mitzvah. I find also, like, a lot of times you move to a new city. I'm now, Baruch Hashem, visiting my in-laws in Muncie, Pomona. There's a lot of things, like a guest for a while sees for a mile. A lot of things that you notice when it's just you see it. So similar way, you move to a new city. I don't know what your mitzvah is. It says in the Torah, when Jewish people traveled, the one who traveled in the back was Dun. Dun was the one who returned everyone's lost objects. Anyone got lost, he brought their children back to their parents. So, case in point, crazy thing yesterday. Yesterday, I'm walking in Pomona, and I see this kid who was dangerously walking close to the road. So what's my first instinct? For sure, their parents know about this, and they just because I just arrived over here, right? So how would I know what's supposed to be happening? Here's a little kid next to the road, but probably the parents know about it, and then just I don't know how this kid is really adept at 2 years old to know when there's passing cars. That wasn't the story. The story was this kid was out in the road, and the parents didn't realize they had a big Shabbos meal, and the kid was out in the road. So if you see something and it looks like that someone needs help, yeah, that's your mitzvah. Why is it that no one noticed it till now? Because Hashem wanted you to have this mitzvah. Hashem gave you this chus. That's your merit. But just like the tribe of Dan, when they arrive somewhere, Jewish people are traveling. They're in the back. I think also when you arrive in a place, you are the last guy who's there. You're the tribe of Dan. You're the one who's gotten there last. You have to ask, what has to get done? And sometimes you may say to yourself, okay, it's my subconscious feelings which are motivating me. Whatever. Don't worry about that. Worry about helping other people and getting the job done. Especially at this time of the 3 weeks when we're focused on the coming of Mashiach and the Geula, now it's Yisrael. It's time. Any questions or comments? All right.
Did you stop and get some schultz at the gas station?
They have actual Baba Shechita in the gas station here?
I don't know. Told us about it.
It's plenty of gashmis over here, I'll tell you that much. Plenty of gashmis. All right.
Enjoy. Have a great time.